Hello again, it's your internet dad sharing life lessons that I offered my own sons, and I offer them to you through videos in the hope that they'll help you navigate through life. If you like the series, by all means become a subscriber or share a link with your other friends. It's a whole raft of different subjects, but today's entitled Modern Art, Heritage or Hoax. And by that I mean, is modern art part of the heritage of this country and other countries, or is it a hoax that's played on all of us? Now, I'm not an art expert, but I know what I like, and I think you do too. For those of you who are not familiar with art history, a 60-second summary. Art as we know it today, and we're talking about oils or acrylics, framed, hanging on a wall, like you see in the National Gallery or in an art gallery in town. Going back to medieval times was purely religious in nature. And starting about 500 years ago, in the Italian Renaissance, it began to become secular. And that produced landscapes and also portraits. And the portraits were a major source of income for the artists. Possibly the most famous one of all time is the Mona Lisa, painted 500 years ago. That type of art obviously spread throughout Europe, and we have a good example in the Dutch masters, which was essentially a middle-class country. Royalty was not present, the aristocracy was modest. It became something that everyone could aspire to, an oil painting of themselves and their friends. And this continued for a number of years until about 150 years ago, a new art fashion burst on the scene. And this originated in Paris, and artists there began, instead of representing the scene exactly, by use of different brushwork, different techniques and the use of light, they created what they saw as an impression of the scene or the person. But shortly thereafter, in a step beyond Impressionism, we see in the early 1900s, starting perhaps with Cubanism and Picasso and other modern and abstract artists, geometrical shapes and daubs of paint apparently on blank canvas. This was a huge departure, because really for half of human history, the art had represented what the artist saw, representation art. And if you want to take it to extremes, you can go back to those caves in Spain where there are horses and bisons painted on the wall 35,000 years ago, and we can instantly recognize what the artists intended. What we see in the early years of the 1900s with Cubanism and abstract art is a complete departure from that long-standing tradition. Question you might ask yourself is, why did it happen? Well, one of the possible explanations might be the rise of photography, particularly color photography in the early 1900s. Remember, much of the income of artists was portraiture. And starting in the 1860s, 1850s, black and white photography was very cheap. It was available to everybody. Now, the rich and affluent continued to have their portrait painted in oils like the one behind me. But it still continued in black and white and was a poor cousin. But starting in the early 1900s, color photography became possible, and with it, color portraits. Now, it wasn't easy, but it became progressively easier because in the 1930s, it was possible to walk into a drugstore and buy color film for your camera and make color portraits. And the question you might ask yourself is, did the artists starting in the 1900s, moving into their abstract art, take refuge there because their main line of employment, portraiture, was now irrelevant? It was ubiquitous, it was inexpensive. I don't know if that is the answer, but certainly nothing has scaled back the enthusiasm for what we would call modern art or abstract art. Now, the French Impressionists were considered quite avant-garde for their time, but today they seem quite conventional. When I talk about abstract art, I want to talk about how you view it. Do you view it as part of the heritage of the country or as a hoax that's played on the rest of us? Well, the important thing to remember is beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and so is art. You will like some modern art, and some of the rest of it will appear ridiculous, and perhaps that hoax we're talking about. The most important thing is to keep looking, but don't be intimidated by some modern art expert who explains in copious detail how 3 blotches of different colored paint on a blank canvas is a masterpiece. It may very well be, we don't know, but we know that in 10 years the artist may be forgotten and the artwork useless, worthless, and valueless. Or it could be worth $1 million. So go into an art gallery or an art museum with an open mind and come to your own conclusions. If there's one watchword in this entire series that I share with you, it is agree to disagree. For some it'll be attractive, for others it'll be nonsense. But either way, don't stop looking. There are amazing pieces of work out there, and you can find them. Good luck.